Hello and good afternoon. I'm Dr. Jenn, the owner of Mountain Phoenix Center for Vibrant Living, and I wanted to touch base with you today about, find out what's operating in your subconscious mind. Do you know what's operating in your subconscious mind? Have you ever thought about it? Have you ever wondered what's happening in your subconscious mind and how it might be affecting how you move through the day, how you make decisions through the day, how you're living your life? If you haven't asked these questions, then these are some questions to start thinking about. Because what is happening in your subconscious mind, in your subconscious mind affects everything that we do, every moment of every day. And I say that because our conscious mind only is about 10% of what's operating in our brain. That 90% of what's happening in our mind is subconscious. Those can be old belief patterns, old thought patterns, scars, emotions that have gotten stuck or stored. It can be past trauma. It can be circumstances or things that, happened when we were really young. And I say really young, it can be things that occurred when we were in utero. It can be things that occurred in our first year of life, in our first 7 years of life, that we didn't understand the world like we do now. I mean, and you think of it now, how many times are you having a conversation with somebody and you think you're both on the same page and you realize you're not? And you try to clarify, and again, you think you're on the same page and you realize you're not. How many times has that happened to you? I know it happens to me. It still happens to me. And I address and work on what's going on in my subconscious mind. So I can imagine for those who maybe are not even aware that their subconscious mind is such a large part of what our mind is engaged in and how it affects how we move through our day, that it's super important to start bringing what's in the subconscious into our conscious, so that way we can make some decisions about it. So for instance, I can think of a 11-year-old boy who had come into my office some time back, and what came up from his subconscious mind was fear. And it was fear that had occurred around the age of 7, and it was around abandonment. And when I asked him where this fear was operating, and I was able to tap into that it was 7, he knew exactly what it was. He knew that it was when his parents were going to go on a date. And it was just, they were going to go out to dinner. What he, as a child, how he took that experience, how it got stored in his body was at fear of abandonment. Because he was afraid they were not going to come back. This was a new experience for him. His parents hadn't been on a date that he remembered prior to that. And it led to a lot of fear coming up around being abandoned over the next years of his life. I mean, here he was 11 years old. So we were able to address that. We were able to clear that from his subconscious mind. We were able to help his body to release that trauma. So if you can think that, hello Debbie, hello Kelly, if you think about what fear, how it affects the decisions you make, how it affects how you move in your life, for this kid, having that fear of abandonment stored as trauma in his body, If that's operating below the surface, below his awareness, and our subconscious is 90% of what our mind's doing, can you imagine how that affects his decision making, how that affects choices he makes about what he might want to do or not do, new experiences, changes? Fear is going to come up more easily because it was a pattern that started to develop around the age of 7. Now, fortunately for him, his parents brought him in for care. We were able to help his body release that. Now, I think of myself, as somebody in their 40s, it was only since I've been doing this work in these last years that I've really paid attention to my body beyond the physical. I started to pay attention to the emotional, the mental, the spiritual, and then not just the conscious mind, but the subconscious mind, realizing that that's a huge factor that often goes unaddressed in our healing, in our releasing, in what we're trying to address, to move into our life in the way that we want to live fully in our life. So obviously this is somewhat of an ambiguous conversation, because if you don't know what's going on in your subconscious, then it's hard to know what to do. So what are some things that you can do to bring your subconscious into the conscious? Now, here in my office, I have techniques and approaches that do just that allow the subconscious to become conscious. And that happened earlier with somebody. It was her first full session here in the office, and one of the subconscious beliefs that came up, that consciously she thought one way and her body felt different, was around her intuition. She, in her conscious mind, she trusts her intuition. Her subconscious mind said no. There were some things that have occurred in the past that had put up a block, had put up an obstacle to what her subconscious mind believed around intuition. We were then able to do some clearing around it and help her body release that for her conscious mind and her subconscious mind. Basically, physically, emotionally, mentally, spiritually, we're all aligned and all connected for her to be able to trust her intuition. So obviously working with me is a way to be able to address what's going on in your subconscious mind. But what are some other things that you might be able to do to pay attention to what your subconscious mind is telling you? That would probably the first thing that you can do is pay attention. If you are having things come into your mind, you're having things come into your awareness, you're feeling things in your body, and when you pay attention to it, certain thoughts, emotions, events, times in your life come into your mind, pay attention to that. Don't just be like, oh, that's an interesting thought, and let it go away. It probably came into your awareness for a reason. It came into your awareness for you to look at it, for you to pay attention to it. And you might think, well, I don't really know what to do with that. If you do pay attention to it, that's okay. The first step is acknowledging and being aware that it came into your awareness. That's the first step. And the more you do that, the more that information will show up for you. Now, if you want to take it to the next step of what you can do to pay attention to what your subconscious mind might be sharing, deep breathing. You're going to hear me say this a lot if you're watching my Facebook Lives. Deep breathing, focusing on your breath is super important, and a really easy way to tap into you, to go inside with you, and that will allow you to more easily connect with information that might be coming up. The second would be, and I say this a lot too, stream of consciousness journaling, what I call stream of consciousness. You have an event, you have a person, you have a time period, you have these thoughts, these feelings come up into your awareness. Pull out your journal and just start writing. No judgment. And what I mean by that, whatever comes, comes. Don't be thinking, well, I can't write that. I can't think that. Oh, what if somebody sees that? No, this is something just for you. Write what comes. No judgment also means don't worry about grammar. Don't worry about sentence structure. This is just to bring information out into the awareness, into your consciousness, and we can look at it later. Sometimes it's just a matter of like literally bringing information out. And it's by bringing information out, then other information will start coming into your awareness for you to address it that way. Sometimes the information actually comes out in writing. Sometimes it'll come once the writing's done. So journaling would be another one. And then other activities that allow you to connect to your body, allow you to connect you to your being. And that can be some walking, some hiking, spending time in nature, can be yoga, for instance. Those are some ways or some circumstances that you can start bringing what's in your subconscious into your conscious mind. If you've got questions, if you've got thoughts, make them below the video. Send me private messages. I'll be happy to answer some questions or address some things there. Or if you want me to check in and see what might be coming up in your subconscious, yeah, send me a private message or call my office and schedule a complimentary consultation, and I can let you know what's coming up. The number to my office is 828-230-7253. Again, that's 828-230-7253. And you don't have to live in the Asheville area. I can do this for people all over the country, well, all over the world. And you don't have to be here. There are some people that I work with who I've never met in person. So again, make some comments, ask your questions, send me private messages, or schedule a complimentary consultation. I look forward to connecting with you. Until then, I'm sending you health, love, and synergy your way. Have a great day.